countries have our own problems. Look at us. We have a systemic issues with racism. We have all kinds of issues, and like every country has issues. So why is Cuba any different? It's just their own, their own particular issues.
Yep, and you can always put that masquerade of cynicism about the reality of others, but never forget that the Cuban reality not just affect Cubans, have very specific and concrete consequences in the rest of the region, from the exodus of Mariel to the exodus of millions of Venezuelans right now in Colombia and in the whole continent. That we wouldn't be dealing with that if the Cuban regime were not in place. So for the continent to have tolerated 62 years of totalitarian regime of communist dictatorship in Cuba has had terrible consequences, from the political and democratic instability in many countries of the region till the suffering, the specific economical suffering of the people, not just the Cuban people, not also the Venezuelan, as the Bolivians, what they were facing, as the Nicaraguans, what they are facing, and ask yourself if we have been dealing with these issues without a dictatorship in Havana. The answer is very clear. The head of the octopus of the instability in the continent is in Havana. So we have to target the head. Of course, we have to deal with the hands, but we have to target the head in a moment in which we have a possibility to success. And the Cuban people is in the streets demanding that change.
Mm-hmm. What could we do here to help Cuban citizens, or even if we're being specific with LGBTQ, because obviously that's our avenue. But our families are all Cuban. We all have ties to Cuba in some way. Why should we help Cuba? Why should we help Cuban citizens? And how do we even do that?
Help us spread the voice. Help us explain the Cuban situation. Help us.
Good points.
Yeah, help us to translate what is going on the island, the harsh reality, but also our demand for change, what people is doing in the street. Help us spread that voice into the American public, but also help us to make the representative of the American people coherent with that feeling. Help us put them in the position of supporting the Cuban civil society, the Cuban opposition, the Cuban people, preventing that any coin of that aid goes to the regime. To the regime, you have to go with targeted sanctions, with pressure, also inviting the rest of the region, because this is not a United States problem. There is not a conflict between the Cuban people and the United States government. That's a lie. We want to be free and we want to be friends. It was a phrase that my father repeated when he talked about United States, and that's the reality. That's what we feel. I mean, do you remember the beginning of the conversation? We Cubans, we have in us the strength to change the things. I'm positive about it.
That's good.
But we also need the international support. This is not 1960s anymore. It's not 1980s. It's not 1990s.
Right.
Fidel Castro is dead. Hugo Chavez is dead. Raul Castro is probably dying. And the sons, grandsons, this corrupt mafia that rules the country, and that is a threat even to the national security of this country, could be pressured. And that pressure should be in the direction of supporting what the Cuban people is demanding, which is the right to decide.
Yeah.
Which is a transition
Human rights.
So cut them off of supplies and things like that.
Of course. I mean, go to be bold. Target them
strategic
personally.
Mm-hmm.
Target those that are in charge of repression, the persons, not the state, the persons. From Raul Castro till López Callejas, which is in charge of the military conglomerate and has all the resources that belong to the Cuban people. To the head of the repression in the island, to each one of the representatives that right now are in charge of repressing those that are on the streets demanding change. But you could also go creative and try to support directly the Cuban people in the middle of this crisis. We implement an initiative to try to send humanitarian assistance to the island. We collect tons of food and medicine, and we put those tons of food and medicines in the Puerto of Mariel in Cuba. And the Cuban regime stole it, everything. In the middle of the crisis, they confiscated the food and the medicines that were for the Cuban families that are starving and that need medicine.
How we as 4WardMiami are committed to spreading the word. Anything that helps people communicate, helps them discuss and see through any kind of propaganda. The more we speak about this, the better we are as a Miami-Dade community, because that's the only way we can work on our issues together, by understanding them.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And where can they find you, and where can they find Cuba Decide?
Well, we are in all the social networks, in Twitter, in Facebook, in Instagram, and in all of them we are Cuba Decide. You can, of course, always go to my networks also. It's Rosa Maria Payá in all of them. And the most important thing here that I think is the one that we have discussed once and again, everybody could make something. Yeah. Everybody could take a step. Everyone could take an action. Yep. So we have the disposition, and actually we ask you to take that action with us, to help us to change the things in Cuba, not just for the Cuban people, but for the whole.
For all of us. For all of us.
Absolutely.